Hello, hello again, ladies and gentlemen. I am Sharan Goodspeed Keaton, Director of COT Productions and Civic Impact for Fort Worth Opera. And I am so thrilled today to have Nathaniel Catasca here with me today. He is our Hattie Mae Leslie resident artist tenor, and he is amazing. Today we're going to talk about Women's History Month. We are here, it is March. For those of you who don't know, and if you don't know, shame on you. But it's March and it's Women's History Month. And one of the things that I love about Women's History Month is taking the opportunity to honor women, past and present, living and dead, who have contributed to our history. And a big part of our history in the making is Nathaniel, a rising star tenor who is destined to take over the opera world. And so I wanted to talk to him about who those women are in his life that have had a positive impact on him, that have helped him, whether it's with music or just in life in general. So Nathaniel gave me an abridged list of those women, and I want to kind of talk about that. Talk about how, who those women are and how they impacted you, short-term, long-term, whatever. Let's start with Connie Haas.
Connie was someone who came, interestingly, before we actually formed a relationship. When I was at Eastman in my graduate degree, she was teaching there as well, and I had a few master classes and studio classes where I went to hers. But when I was working with Florentine Opera Company, she was their resident voice teacher. So I was able to form a relationship, and it was really great to just be able to have her insight every 2 weeks, I think it was, to just learn about music and singing and all of that. But she's been a really great inspiration outside of that. Nice. To be able to just talk about music and life and just be a leader in her own right.
Yeah. Which is so very important. I don't want to jump ahead. Well, I'll wait. I get so excited. I'll wait. So great. So do you still have a pretty regular relationship? Does she know that you think she's amazing?
I hope she does.
Okay.
We do speak regularly. I do have regular lessons with her.
Okay.
But maybe I could tell her a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay. Jana Ernst. Talk to me about Jana.
Jana was the coach for Florentine. We have some really interesting stories together of being stranded in Florida together and a whole list of ordeals.
We're going to have another episode just to talk about that.
But through a lot of hardships that I've had in my life, both personally and professionally, she was always the one at the front line to kind of be our protector as resident artists at that time, to just be a leader within her own right at every single turn and avenue that we had. And having left her leadership, there are multiple times where I look back and I go, wow, she did more than I even realized. Kind of like looking at a mom when you leave the house and you just turn back and you go, oh, you did a lot more than I even realized. So I'm really thankful for that.
Awesome. Okay. We are just plowing through this list. Dr. Elizabeth Avery.
Dr. Elizabeth Avery was the first real vocal coach I think I had in my undergraduate studies. She has always just been a wealth of encouragement and information. I first officially met her when I was in her Italian diction class, I want to say.
Okay.
And she, throughout my entire undergraduate degree, I think was the most informative and influential person throughout my undergraduate studies. She always had a way to relate to you and your way of learning to help you really understand the concept that we were talking about in the quickest way possible. Not even just with me, but with everyone that she worked with. I remember there was one time we were working with a pianist, and she kind of looked at him and was like, do you play the organ? And he was like, yeah, how did you know? And she said, well, I can tell because of blah, blah, blah. And just went off, but then immediately was able to find that connection and, relate that into how we were playing that particular piece. So it was really amazing to see her ability to just be that flexible, but also just have a way to show that information in such a humanistic way. And I don't know, just truly being one of the most influential people I've worked with.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I hope I pronounced this correctly. Speranza Scapucci.
Yes.
Okay.
She was the first female conductor that I have ever worked with. And I think to this date, sadly, the only female conductor that I've had.
Sad.
Isn't it?
So sad.
But she was, again, just a wealth of information, a wealth of energy, a wealth of just knowledge that when she walked into the room, she really just took control of the room and said, I'm here and this is what we're doing. And we all felt so at ease and so happy to be under her baton. She really had so much to teach us, not only just in terms of getting the show together, but in terms of helping us comprehend the show in and of itself. And she always just walked into the room as this fearless leader that I really admired.
Nice. I'm going to segue here just a little bit because before we talk about this last person, because hopefully we'll be able to get to hear you sing a little bit of this last person's work, so I'm going to save it. But I've noticed in my lifetime when I watch certain movies, very particularly one of my favorite movies is Selma. And for those of you who haven't seen Selma, you should go watch it. But it sort of chronicles the journey and the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And it received some kind of negative press in some ways because it was the life of this great man, but directed by a woman. And shout out to Ava DuVernay. But I tend to like that dynamic because nobody in the world can argue that men and women innately think different, view the world differently, have a different perception of things, right? And so inevitably, when you see a piece of art that is directed or produced or conducted or composed or whatever by a female, there's going to be some differences in the approach than it would if a male. Not good, bad, or indifferent, just different. And I like that. Did you notice very distinct differences in working with her as a conductor versus some other conductors that you'd worked with?
I would say so. I think one of the biggest things that I noticed, and this isn't to say about every male conductor, but I think I really noticed more of a collaborative environment under her baton of, I am the conductor and therefore I am in control of making sure that this does not fall apart. However, let's talk about it. Let's do something. Let's, understand where we're both coming from so we can meet in the middle. Let's truly collaborate. Where I think sometimes when you're walking into a male-dominated space, there can be a lot of question of, are you just in charge or are we here to work together? What is happening? And I think in my experience, not just with Speranza, but with so many other women in my life, that it's more of a, how are we going to collaborate together to make this project ours and not just mine, not just yours, but ours.
I think that's great. I think that's great. And I think the good thing is that as women, we're innately nurturers and listeners. And so that helps. Not all women, of course. But innately we are. And I think that allows us to bring a greater contribution, especially to the arts, because the arts is a place where communication really is key. One more question, and then I want to talk just a little bit about the piece that you've chosen and this female composer. If you had to gauge percentage of your life, the greatest impact overall, what percentage would you say was strong men versus strong women?
I would say 80 to 90% was strong women. I think there was a 10% of really strong men and part of that, but I really think a huge part of my, especially developmental time in my schooling and early career, was very much strong women.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I love that. And not just because I'm a woman. Okay. All right. Talk to me about Lori Lateman and the Apple Orchard. I'm so excited about that. Talk to me about that.
The Apple Orchard was a piece that I learned right at the end of undergrad. It was sort of just handed to me, and I kind of just at the time just liked the piece and was singing it a lot and going into it. I never have had the opportunity to meet Lori Lateman, but as I got older and kind of learned more about music and classical music and things like that, it became very clear, I think, just how special the piece itself is, but her perspective. You know, every time I look at it, even now, I was looking at it in preparation for this after a little hiatus, and just kind of understanding the nuances that she has to bring. And I think just the idea that we don't talk a lot about women composers or women conductors or anything like that, let alone having a living composer, you know, is not always something that we focus on in the classical arts. But I think having such a just beautiful piece is so amazing, that has such a interesting story throughout the whole piece, and the whole ability to understand that through the music, through, you know, the words, through the whole atmosphere of it all.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear it. I admittedly have never heard it before. I've seen the score, but I've never heard it. And I'm very excited not only to hear it, but to also hear your interpretation of it. Because I think that a certain amount of value is given to the librettist, the composer, for the story. But there is a whole other layer of amazingness that comes through the storyteller. And I'm excited.
You won't remember it. The apple orchard we wandered through one April afternoon, climbing the hill behind the empty farm. A city boy, I'd never seen a grove burst in full flower, or breathed the bittersweet perfume of blossoms mingled with the dust. A quarter mile of trees in fragrant rows arching above us. We walked the aisle alone in spring's ephemeral cathedral. We had the luck, if you could call it that, of having been in love but never lovers. A bright flame burning, fed by pure desire. Nothing concealed, such secrets brought to light. There was a moment when I stood behind you, reached out to spin you toward me. But I stopped. What more could I have wanted from that day? Everything, of course. that what we will not grasp is lost.
Ladies and gentlemen, please keep an eye on Nathaniel Catasca. He is an amazing talent and an amazing human, and we're so very fortunate to have him. And also keep an eye on all of those women and all of the women in your life, and take the time to let them know how much they have really and so greatly impacted your life. With that said, I want to shout out to my mom. Hey, mama. And again, history is not only about the women that are listed in the history books. History is about the women who are teaching young singers right now today. Because they are creating what is going to be our history in the making. So thank you again, Nathaniel, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
All right, bye everybody. Thank you.